Here we have William Marbury, who, along with 3 other men, did not receive their commissions following their midnight appointments and felt it was appropriate to sue James Madison. And so there you go, hence Marbury versus Madison. Alrighty, so what exactly was decided? How did this all work out? The way it did is really quite impressive, and you got to hand it to John Marshall. So in his mind, again, he's trying to tread very lightly here. Here are the 3 questions of the case. Number 1, are the men entitled to their commissions? Number 2, can the courts be forced by Marbury to deliver the commissions? And number 3, were Marbury and the other plaintiffs entitled to the remedy they sought, which were writs of mandamus. Writs of mandamus. So that essentially is an order to do something. So they're asking SCOTUS to issue James Madison a writ of mandamus to forcefully hand over their commissions, their jobs. Alrighty, so for question 1, are the men entitled to their commissions? Yes. Yeah, John Marshall said they were, but it's not the job of the court to force that. Number 2, can the courts be forced by Marbury to deliver the commissions? Nope, they cannot. And were Marbury and the other plaintiffs entitled to the remedy that they sought? No. Now here's why. Here's where it gets interesting. So SCOTUS had the power to grant these writs of mandamus, but they did not have the power to do so from the Constitution. Instead, they were granted this power by Congress. Congress essentially changed the power of SCOTUS under the Judiciary Act of 1789. And when they did this, they're not supposed to do that. That is not a power of Congress. Therefore, Congress acted unconstitutionally. Okay, I'm going to try to do that one more time. Unconstitutionally. That's how Congress behaved, unconstitutionally. So the ruling here is that part of the Judiciary Act of 1789 is invalid. So that's overturning law. I'd call that judicial, what would you say? If you said activism, you're right. And as they're declaring it invalid, they're also simultaneously establishing judicial review, which is the authority of the court to strike down a law or an executive action if it conflicts with the Constitution. This is huge. This is huge. This gives the Supreme Court power to do every other ruling, to look at the Constitution from here on out. So the implications, Marshall totally expanded the power of the court to interpret the Constitution and then went on to use the power to overturn several state laws and really, like I said before, expand the power of the federal government. And keep in mind, he did this from 1801 to 1835. Okay. So already said that for you. This just goes to show that Marbury versus Madison is a required SCOTUS case and Federal 78 is a required foundational document. And if you would like to press pause and take a picture of this FRQ to practice, be my guest. And while you're doing so, hopefully you're seeing these questions and you can understand that judicial review totally made SCOTUS a co-equal branch of the government. And it's up to you and whether or not they overstep their bounds in assuming the power of judicial review. That is up to you. Okay. Alrighty. From this point forward, y'all, I'm so excited I found this because this is, I think it's close to midnight on a Sunday, what is Sunday? The 28th. Apparently I had to leave last semester when we were covering this unit. So the rest of the PowerPoint is me recording it during second period, and I ask them questions and they give me answers. So I hope you enjoy your peers who are in my second period and their input. Okay? All righty. Enjoy the show. So in terms of the judicial branch, the concept of federalism also applies. Remember, what is federalism?
Separation of powers between a central government and a local government.
That is correct. So it means that the power of the government is shared between the national government and state government. That applies with the federal judiciary because the United States has two court systems, a federal court system and a court system for the states. Both the states and the federal government have trial and appellate courts. So the trial courts that have original jurisdiction, meaning they're the ones who hear the case first, and the appellate courts that have appellate jurisdiction, meaning they're the ones who hear the case second, okay? However, state courts will only apply the state constitution and laws to the cases they hear. So there is a difference between a federal crime and a state crime. And there is a difference between federal courts and state courts. There's also a difference between federal prison and state prison. Just like there's a difference between federal judges and state judges. Remember, federal judges, not elected. So they're going to be the ones who are more often giving out maximum sentences because they don't have to worry about public opinion or any potential fallout that could result in elections because of them having a tough reputation. Okay? Federal courts will also review when state cases deal with federal law or the application of the Bill of Rights. Okay, let's take a moment and let's look at the three levels of our court system. Think about this question. Why does having separate state and federal courts lead to conflicts under our system of federalism? Just think about it. This chart shows you the modern court system with the U.S. Supreme Court being the last word. The yellow dots on the right represent the state levels. So at the very top level of the state, you've got the state Supreme Courts. There's 51. What do you think the one is? DC, that's right. And then you've got lower state courts, and then you've got special courts. On the federal side, underneath the Supreme Court, you've got the Federal Court of Appeals and federal district courts. Both the state and the federal government have special courts like family court, juvenile court, bankruptcy court, tax courts, etc. This just shows you some information about the kinds of courts that exist, how many judges they have, how long their terms are, and about how much they get paid. You're doing pretty good if you're a judge, right? On SCOTUS, you're making over $200,000. Not too shabby. Yet another graphic for you. Okay. Level 1 are our district courts. So these are the trial courts of the federal system. Do you think that you have a jury in a federal court? Think about it. Yes, you do. Yes, you do. This is where the vast majority of the work is done at the federal level. I would say 97% of the federal caseload happens at the district courts because they have original jurisdiction. They're the ones who hear it first. There are 94 of them in total, so you are guaranteed to have at least one federal district court per state with at least one judge per district. Your textbook says there's 678. A little graphic I'll show you in a second says 677. So there's a little discrepancy. It'll be all right. And just so you guys know, we have 3 federal districts in Georgia, so 3 district courts. And for those 3 district courts, we have 15 district judges. Just FYI. And you will go to the federal district court in Atlanta if you break a federal law. Please don't do that. Too late. Oh no, Wilson said too late. I find that hard to believe, buddy. So Wilson, every class that listens to this will hear that. Check it out, guys. There are your 3 federal districts. for Georgia. So imagine if you break a federal law in Thomasville, you got to drive a fair amount to get to the court in Macon, right? Yeah. So maybe just don't break a federal law.
Or if you're going to do it close to the court.
Or Dylan says, if you do break a federal law, do it close to the court. Well, there you go, Dylan. Thank you, sir. Alrighty, the middle level, level 2, is our courts of appeals. There are 13 federal courts of appeals. We happen to be in the 11th Circuit. In the 11th Circuit, there are 12 appellate judges, and there are 4 locations. Ours happens to be in the ATL. Shocking. These courts have appellate jurisdiction only, which means that they will review decisions that are made by the district courts. And in this case, not a jury. You got a panel of judges. 3 of them. Why 3 and not 2? Exactly. Yeah, so you don't have a tie, right? That would be weird. Any questions on the appellate courts? Okay, then. Waiting.
Review the case after it's already happened?
Yes, so Carter asked, they'll review a case after it's already happened. Yes, they have absolutely no original jurisdiction. Okie doke. Here's an image that shows you the United States divided up based on geography and what court or what circuit they're in. So you see we share our Court of Appeals circuit with what other states? Alabama and Florida. So Dylan, even though you moved from Florida, you're still in the 11th Circuit. Isn't that nice?
Fantastic.
Dylan says it's fantastic. I agree. I concur. Alrighty. Our top level of our 3-tier federal court system. Hey, by the way, does anybody happen to remember what piece of legislation established the 3-court tiered system? It's not the Constitution. It is the Judiciary Act. Nod, nod. Hint, hint. Wink, wink. Yes. Ooh, very nice. It is the Judiciary Act of 1789. I see second period has been studying for their vocab quiz. You just might see that question on your vocab quiz. Okay, second period wants to tell me something. What?
And you always say what Federal 78 is. It was written by Hamilton.
Yes, it was written by Hamilton. That's Federalist 78.
And it talks about judges and what they should do.
And it does talk about judges. Maybe we should be a little bit more specific and then we'll continue on.
Establishes the Judiciary Branch.
It says they have to be impartial and lifetime terms. And it's the weakest branch. All right, second period got really excited. So for my folks who are on the field trip today, just know that they're very excited and I'm happy for them. So good job. Good job. All righty. The top tier is SCOTUS, Supreme Court of the United States. They are there to resolve differences between the states and to resolve different interpretations of the law. There is one SCOTUS. Yes, I know the states have their own, but there is only one Supreme Court of the United States. Kind of like the Ohio State, it is the Supreme Court of the United States. They have both original and appellate jurisdiction, but their original jurisdiction only accounts for about 1 to 3% of the 80 cases on average they hear a year out of the 7,000 to 9,000 cases that want to be heard. We've had 9 justices ever since the year 1869. And let's take a moment to ensure that you did your homework last night and let's meet them. Oh, before we do that, here's just another look at the federal court system. Fabulous little graphic for you. There's a great video you can watch on the structure of the court system. And now let's say hi-de-ho. Okay. I apologize. This is not in any particular order because I had to change things. So let me just go ahead and press all the buttons. Okay. Yes. Who has been on the court the longest as of right now? Clarence Thomas is correct. So do you see him? There he is. He is the only African-American member of the court. He is being pointed to with the red arrow. What does the red arrow suggest?
He was appointed by a Republican.
Appointed by a Republican. Very good. Who was he appointed by?
H.W. Bush.
H.W. Bush. Excellent. And he was appointed in 1991, which, and I know it says political learnings. Yeah, that's not right. Political leanings. Which way does he lean? Yeah, so instead, though, I'd like you to write conservative, because they are supposed to not have a party affiliation, but they can have a political affiliation. So he does tend to vote on matters in a more conservative way. So does that mean, in most cases, he operates under judicial restraint or judicial activism? Restraint, very good. So does that mean he's more likely to be an originalist or a modernist? Originalist, very good. And y'all, that is a broad generalization, but very good. Who has been on the court the second longest? Ruth Bader Ginsburg, very good. Who was she appointed by? Bill Clinton, that's right, in 1993. And even though the picture looks like she's leaning to the right, sorry, I am funny sometimes. She really has what kind of leanings? Yeah, she's pretty dang liberal. She's pretty dang liberal, okay? Who was also nominated by Clinton? Stephen Breyer, all the way over there to the left of the picture. He was appointed by Clinton in 1993. And since he was appointed by Clinton, what do you guess his political leanings are? He's more liberal, very good. And then in the middle, the only man who gets his label or his box underneath everybody else is the Chief Justice of the United States, and that is John G. Roberts. Who is he appointed by? W. Bush, very good. In what year? 2005. Thank you, Elaine. And he tends to be a conservative. That's right. And who else was appointed by W. Bush? Samuel Alito, very good. He was appointed by W in 2006, also a conservative. And then who are Obama's two nominees? Sotomayor and Kagan, very good. Sotomayor nominated in 2009 and confirmed in 2009, I should say. Kagan confirmed in 2010, both liberals. And then who are Trump's two nominees? Who was confirmed first? Gorsuch, very good, in 2017. And who was next? Kavanaugh in 2018, both conservatives. So everybody, what is the current makeup of the Supreme Court? What side has the majority? 5-4 conservative. Yes, you can have some people in the middle, but we might see a fair amount of 5-4 rulings. I love a 5-4 ruling. It means there was a lot of good discussion. Oh, to be a fly on the wall in those weekly conference meetings. It's Leslie Knope. Do you guys watch Friends? That was a pretty famous Friends poster. And look, one of Leslie Knope's friends made her a t-shirt with the members of SCOTUS sipping out of milkshakes together. It makes me so happy. You know what else makes me happy? I own that t-shirt. I'll wear it for you on Friday. I know, I'm excited too. Josh Mills, that was a jerky thing to say. He said it was the day before Auburn loses. Josh Mills, that's what I have to say. Are we betting? You best add your name up there, young man. Okay. Oh, and we just went over that. How nice. You don't have to do it right now, sweetie. All right, so here's how most cases reach the Supreme Court. Okay, folks, 8 steps to judgment. Here we go. Number 1, reviewing requests for appeal. Appeals will come to the Supreme Court by petition via writ of certiorari. You know, there's some words that are hard to say for us, I'm sure. Certiorari is one of those for me. Yeah? Good job. You guys are better than I am. A writ of certiorari is an order to a lower court, an order to the lower court to send up their records for a case. So in other words, the Supreme Court wants to look at it. Does anybody know how many of the 9 justices have to agree? That's right, 4. That is called the rule of 4. I see we're studying for a vocab quiz. Good job. All right, so that's a writ of certiorari. They can also come by petition in forma pauperis. Raise your hand if you are reading Just Mercy.
Oh, we already did.
Okay, a lot of the folks in prison will file to the Supreme Court through in forma pauperis. It means in the form of a pauper. In other words, they can't afford to have the legal fees to get their case to the Supreme Court. So somebody files the paperwork for them as a person without the funds. So Brian Stevenson has submitted a ton of those in forma pauperis petitions to get to the Supreme Court. Okay? So that is filed on behalf of someone who can't pay. And together, these issued writs create the docket, the list of the 80 or so cases that the Supreme Court will hear in their term. And this just shows you the process of getting to SCOTUS on the state and federal side. Ooh, fancy. Okay. Yes, Pumpkin.
What do like the justices do when they're not like making a ruling from the docket? Like what do they do like on their everyday basis?
The question was, what do justices do when they're not at work? So if you watched the documentary on the notorious RBG, she exercises like a fiend. She can plank for longer than I'm guessing you and I can plank. I don't know. We can try to time ourselves at the end of class. Perhaps they enjoy fishing. Maybe they like to do a good mall walk. I don't know. Just whatever their hobbies are.
Kind of like more like how often are they really like judging?
Weekly meetings. They have weekly meetings where they sit and they vote. That's a great question. All right, let's grant the appeal. The Supreme Court also has discretionary appellate jurisdiction, meaning they don't have to hear every case that tries to get there. Like I said, 7,000 to 9,000 cases try to get to the Supreme Court. They only hear about 80. Okay? So which cases reach the court? Let's talk about that. It is subjective, but there are some fairly predictive factors. When 2 lower courts' decisions conflict, the Supreme Court might hear your case. When a lower court's ruling conflicts with an existing SCOTUS ruling, they might hear that case. So if SCOTUS ruled in Roe v. Wade that abortion is constitutional in the first trimester, and the Georgia State Supreme Court upholds the heartbeat law, SCOTUS might hear that case. When the case is a far-reaching significance, like the abortion cases, SCOTUS might hear that case. When a federal court holds an act of Congress unconstitutional, the Supreme Court might hear that case. Flip the page. When the highest state court holds a federal law invalid, they're not supposed to do that, or upholds a state law being challenged as violating a federal law, the Supreme Court might hear your case. When the Solicitor General is asking for SCOTUS to hear the case, they'll probably hear that case. When Noel Francisco wants them to look at something, the 9 justices will probably say, okay, buddy, we'll listen to it. We'll hear them out. Remember, the Solicitor General, are they A, the person who prosecutes on behalf of the United States, or B, the person who represents the United States for the Supreme Court? B, very good. That might be on your vocab quiz. Maybe. Small possibility.
I'll leave something.
Don't worry about it. Just don't worry about it.
But don't forget, guys. Oh, so on your note-taking guide, who is that? They rep the U.S. in SCOTUS cases. But if a rule of 4 applies, then the court will grant cert. And they will order the lower courts to send up the case. All right, let's brief the case. I think briefs is kind of an oxymoron because they can be very long. But written briefs are presented to the justices and their clerks from both sides. And a brief is information on the case. It's everything you want the court to know about your position and why you're right. Guys, why do the briefs have to be so long?
Because the case is very complex.
The issues are very complex. That's one reason. What's another reason?
You want
They're
them
the government, they like to be good at these.
You want them to agree with you. Very good. Also, how long does both sides have to argue in front of the court? 30 minutes in oral arguments. Very good. Interested parties, of course, can be permitted to file amicus curiae briefs. Do you guys remember what that translates to? Friend of the court. Very good. Who are those interested parties mostly? Interest groups. That's right, because they want the justices to be aware of how the case is going to impact their members. Sometimes there are even briefs filed solely for one particular justice. I always think those are funny. Okay. Oral arguments. Like you just said, each side gets 30 minutes to present their sides of the case. May the public watch. Yes, but you have to stand in a really long line and you may not get in. Can the news bring in their cameras?
No, they cannot.
No, they cannot. No, they cannot. Good old-fashioned pen and paper. Yes, Stuart?
So if I get in, and I
If
start
Stuart gets
videoing
in
it on my phone,
and he starts videoing it on his phone,
are they gonna like shoot me? They'll arrest you.
they're not going to shoot you.
They're gonna kick me out.
So it's not technically a federal crime, so they can't arrest you,
But I'll be
but it's against the rules. So you will be barred from the Capitol most likely. And your name will go on a list. Yeah.
like I'll be banned from all of DC.
I don't know if you'll be banned from all of DC, but you'll definitely be banned from SCOTUS.
Okay.
So don't do it.
Yeah, I won't.
Okay. I did get in trouble for flash photography in the, oh my gosh, what's it called? The Rotunda, the National Archives. I took a picture of the Constitution and I thought I disabled my flash, but I didn't. And they came over and they were not nice to me. And I tried to say, I'm a government teacher. I really didn't mean to do this, but they just didn't let me do it. And I felt really bad.
Yeah.
They made you delete it?
No, they didn't make me delete it, but they scolded me like a child.
You're actively damaging the document.
I know, I was actively damaging the document, which I did not mean to do. Okay, oral arguments are an informally formal process. The justices may ask questions, and when they do so, they have very different questioning styles.
No, it's not. It's 10:23.
It's clearly time.
Oh my gosh. All right, we're gonna finish, so hurry.
23.
Hey, don't forget about when it was bong hits for Jesus,
Yeah.
the Morse versus Frederick case. I don't imagine that any of the justices had to ask, what's a bong hit? I imagine their clerks helped explain that to them beforehand. Or who knows what they were up to there in their youth. I don't know. All right, meetings and conference, very quickly. They have private weekly meetings to discuss oral arguments. And they're almost always on Sundays or Mondays, interestingly enough. And that's also when they select new cases. And they get to go wearing their casual wear. Yeah. By the way, their casual wear is really not casual. It's not, casual day at work. The Chief Justice presides, they discuss the case, they give their conclusion, votes are taken, and then they decide who's going to write the majority opinion this time. They don't do a rock, paper, scissors. I mean, maybe they do. That would be kind of funny. But they do kind of divide up the work. All right, let's explain the decisions. Decisions are given in the opinion of the court, aka the majority opinion. So the majority opinion in a 5-4 ruling is the 5. They explain the reasoning of the majority, which has usually been negotiated. There are also concurring opinions. If I say I concur with you, what does that mean? I agree, very good. So that means they agree with the majority, but for a different reason. Can one other person sign one other justice's concurring opinion? Sure. Sure, they can. You can also have dissenting opinions. In a 5-4 ruling, that's the minority. Okay? So this is the minority opinion, the losing side's opinion. And they write that to say why they think the 5 are wrong. And these can be very scathing. So, can justices sign more than one opinion? Yes, they can. That is true.
Inside all of you.
No, if you're in the majority, you're not going to sign the dissenting opinion.
Yeah, why not?
They could.
But they don't. They won't.
To participate in the government.
Alrighty, writing the opinion. The majority opinion obviously needs at least 5 justices because how many are on the court? 9. There we go. A plurality needs 4. Hey, can we have a 4-4? Yeah, in that case, that the lower decision stands. They're written by the justices, often with their clerk's help, and they send drafts to others for approval. Have you guys ever drafted a text message and before you sent it, you showed it to somebody or sent out a remind? Yeah, I've done that with my emails. Oh my gosh, I hate sending staff emails because I'm afraid I'm going to make a typo and then the English department is going to judge me. I'm just afraid. Sometimes they'll bargain with each other. They might threaten to remove their vote or write a dissenting opinion. And then it's time to release the opinion. Releasing the opinion, now you can find a very short summary of the opinion. You guys should provide us with very short summaries on your case study project. Copies are print or digital. And the court can affirm a lower court decision. That means the court stands by a lower court's decision. Do me a favor. Write stare decisis to the side of that. Stare. S-T-A-R-E. That is stand. Very good. Decisis. D-E-C-I-S-I-S. That means let the decision stand. That means the court is going to refer to a previous ruling. What is that called? Precedent. Very good. The court can also reverse a lower court's decision, which means they overrule it. Or they can remand it. They send it back to the lower court with suggestions. We just talked about precedent and stare decisis. The Chief Justice has, I know, a little bit more opinion or a little bit more influence. Law clerks have opinions and they can influence the court. So can the Solicitor General and citizens. This just shows you that the caseload is on decline. This shows you that since Kennedy stepped down, there's now a 5-4 balance on the court in favor of the conservatives. And guys, you know this. The POTUS nominates, Senate confirms. You know that the Supreme Court lacks the power of implementation. They're appointed for life, but public opinion can shape the legitimacy. They can be scrutinized if they abuse their opinion, but they really don't have to worry too much about public opinion because they're not elected. They're there for life. A great graph for you. Great graph for you. Political cartoon for you. And then we already did the West Wing.